We're almost there. The hours are counting down until we finally know what is next at Blizzcon 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Buttadog here, and today in this video, we're going to be discussing a variety of predictions through all of Blizzard's IPs and potentially some new ones to see what we will be getting at BlizzCon. Now, to keep this conversation as accurate as possible, we are going to be following their broadcast schedule on November 3rd and 4th as a guide for this video. So let's start off at 11 a.m., their opening ceremony. Like BlizzCons of the past, the opening ceremony is really to build hype. They'll go throughout a multitude of their different platforms, their IPs, so World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, Overwatch, and go over broad stroke subjects of what you can expect. For example, in 2019, that was actually when we got the Shadowlands trailer. And then later on in the convention, we saw them iterate on it and talk more in depth about Shadowlands. Now, for this year, they have a lot to cover, so I don't believe they're gonna be explicitly saying everything that's happening within their IPs during this opening ceremony, but more so teasing it for later. Granted, there isn't anything about their survival game on the broadcast schedule explicitly. So my guess is that a majority of the time within the opening ceremony will be spent there, and within the what next sections, which we'll come to in a bit, that will be where we'll get the concrete evidence, trailers, other things like that for upcoming expansions, releases, etc. for all of their different IPs. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the survival game just for a second, and realistically, no one knows anything at all unless you're NDA'd for that survival game. The most we know is from a blog post where Blizzard said the survival game is a place full of heroes we have yet to meet, stories yet to be told, and adventures yet to be lived. A vast realm of possibilities waiting to be explored, along with a few pieces of artwork. So I can't make a concrete prediction on what's going to happen here, but yeah, that's all the evidence we got. The next section is at 1:30, and that is, wow, what is next? This is more akin to retail, so we can expect to either A, get a retail trailer about Stormrider, Stormbreak, all the leaks have been saying, and a deep dive into exactly where we're going next after Dragonflight. If I had to pick a leak that seems pretty good, I know AI's been going like crazy and pictures are hard to find and they're hard to validate, but the Avaloran pictures that have been popping up around social media have been somewhat convincing. Now, sentiment to it is varied. Some people say it looks like the same old, some people say it looks really cool and the badass stone dwarfs are a great idea. Personally, this is probably the most convincing leak to me, so I think that the Khazalgar Stone Dwarf expansion, where we'll be heading west, seems like the plausible outlet for it. But again, we'll see. Next is at 2:30, where Overwatch will immediately jump into its deep dive. Notice how that doesn't say what's next. So, for Overwatch, I can imagine what they're going to announce is that we do know a new tank hero is going to be released, and it's possible that a few other heroes and other characters for Overwatch will also be released. Now, granted, with community sentiment about the competitive scene on Overwatch 2, I can predict pretty confidently that there will be a competitive revamp along with some new game modes for Overwatch 2 to help bolster that community and potentially bring some new players. Next, we're jumping to 3:30 p.m. where we will get the WoW Classic Deep Dive, probably the most interesting part to me. I already made a video about this, which you can find on my channel, talking about the potential of Classic Plus. But if I'm making concrete predictions here, this is what I believe is going to happen. I believe first and foremost, they're going to go and talk about hardcore, the whole bit on how Classic Era has been growing, talk about that, and potentially discuss Classic Plus. It's very nuanced, it's very debated, but do think that there will be something where we'll either get a quote-unquote Classic Plus or a reformatted Season of Mastery 2 that isn't necessarily called Season of Mastery 2. Next, after they talk about Era, I think they're going to jump into the Wrath of the Lich King conversation. Because with all of the evidence that we have right now, Cataclysm is coming, and it's been in development for a long time. with all of the surveys they put out with changes and different iterations they want to do to the game, it's for sure, I can say with about 95% accuracy, Cataclysm will be announced there as well. Now, this does spark up debate within the WoW community because people start to say, well, Classic's going to be diluted with all of these different iterations of Classic, because if you really think about it, we'll have around 4 to 5 different iterations of the Classic version, from Classic Era, Hardcore, potentially Classic Plus, Cataclysm, and Wrath servers if they keep those up. So it's debated. I'm actually not sure the way that they're going to go here, but I am really curious to see it. Next is 4:30 p.m., which I can want to coin almost as like the hangover session from WoW Classic and WoW Retail, which is Hearthstone. Now, everything we've been seeing about Hearthstone lately, it has not been doing well. They just recently laid off I think 10 people from the team, so, you know, it's in a decent spot, but it's not in a great spot. But what we do know is that the new expansion for Hearthstone is Showdown in the Badlands, which releases the week after BlizzCon wraps up. So what I suspect is they're going to be talking about Showdown in the Badlands, potentially a new game mode, and keeping things simple and appetizing for people to understand what's going on in Hearthstone and potentially bring back some players, as they've had a bit of a rough patch lately. And finally, wrapping up Friday at 5:30, they'll be talking about Warcraft Rumble. Do you guys have phones?
Do you guys not have phones?
Yeah. Just kidding. Warcraft Rumble, I mean, what's there to be said? It's their version of Clash Royale. Yeah, and that's about all I'm going to go into there. Next, we're jumping to Saturday, November 4th. At 12 p.m., we will get that WoW Deep Dive. This is going to be the section, like I alluded to earlier, where we're going to get more concrete evidence, animations, picture art, dungeons, raids, release schedule, all that good stuff about the new WoW Retail expansion. And I do think that, given that it is around an hour and 30 minutes, this could be paired with the Classic release if we do get anything about Classic Plus. Now, I can imagine most of this time is going to be spent on Retail and not as much on Classic. But if we do get anything for Classic, I can imagine they're going to intertwine these two spaces to fill that. Next, at 1:30, we will get the Overwatch 2 What's Next. This is interesting to me because the Overwatch 2 Deep Dive is on November 3rd, and the What's Next is on November 4th. So, this is where the speculation and the tinfoil hats can be put on. Will there be an Overwatch 2 expansion announced at BlizzCon this year? Now, granted, I haven't seen anything on the internet about an Overwatch 2 expansion. And being a WoW player, I play Overwatch 2 pretty casually, so I'm not as plugged into this community. But given their schedule and the way that they're optimizing the time for Overwatch 2, this could be interesting and could pose an interesting subject on if Overwatch 2 is going to get something concrete at BlizzCon this year. And finally, for our last game-oriented section, we have Diablo 4 Campfire Chat. Now, at this Campfire Chat, it actually poses an interesting question similar to what I just discussed about Overwatch 2. I can imagine they're going to start off with talking about the last season, the season to come, but is this where they tease the new upcoming Diablo 4 expansion? The release of Diablo 4 was, to say, a huge success, but we've seen, if you even look at the Twitch directory, Diablo 4 has died in popularity significantly, and Blizzard needs to strike while the iron is hot and ensure that they can release something to the public or give hope to Diablo 4 players that they have something to be excited about coming soon. So that's it. Outside of a couple of other community-oriented things and Q&As with specific people, that is BlizzCon 2023 and some of my predictions on what's going to happen. Now, I want to ask all of you guys. You may not agree with what I put in this video, which is totally fine, but please write that in the comments. I want to see your feedback, what you think for each section, and your favorite game, what you can imagine is going to happen. Thanks, guys, again, so much for taking the time to view the video. Make sure to follow Buttadog across all socials, and I will see you on November 3rd.